Hello, hello, hello! Welcome back to another chapter deep dive with yours truly. Today we will be covering chapter 2 of When the Moon Hatched. Though this deep dive will be covering things from the entire book. So if you have not finished the whole book, please go away. And then come back when you have read it, because I do want to keep talking about this with anyone and everyone who would like to talk about this book with me. Beautiful. Let's begin. We left off with Rave undercover as a singer at a tavern in the Gore, where she was hoping to catch the attention of her Fuhrmark, the one that she's supposed to, take care of. She is cornered by none other than the mark she was hoping to attract when she goes to the bathroom and almost finishes the job early before Khan unknowingly gets in her way. Frustrated and almost forgetting her alter ego, Rave goes to leave the tavern before she is stopped by her fellow musician, Levy. Levy's increasingly worried about Rave walking home alone and having seen how Tarek was watching her all night, and insists on Rave walking with her and her matched, aka her husband. In fact, she only relents when Rave shows her a small glass orb containing a picture of the Elding Bird, letting Levy know that she is part of the Firduath. It is in this moment that Levy realizes that Rave is most likely isn't who she says she is and backs off, but not before handing her a very important piece of paper with her contact information on it. Right, down to the good stuff. The first breadcrumb that we're going to find in this chapter is actually on the very first page. Again, it is noted that while Rave is washing her hands in the bathroom, she looks in the mirror and her eyes are powder blue and her skin is snowy in color. These things are important because they're subtle nods to who she really is by giving us a nod to where she is from, the shade. We know that due to the world building, the shade is on the bottom of the world where they don't get any sun, and it is always very, very cold and full of snow. The eye color is important, as we will soon see that the other's eye color is not the same as that blue that she's talking about here when she's looking in the mirror. These hints not only hint to who she is truly and where she is from, but also hint as to who the other is. And so it's important to remember those things. Once again, I'm going to bring up Rave's sassy inner monologue. And she says, "One of these aurora cycles, I'm going to be forced to bite my tongue so hard I sever the tip. I'm sure of it. The fact that it's still attached is a fucking miracle." I love this inner monologue. It is so fun to be inside of her head. This is in reference to the woman who commented on her singing by giving her such a backhanded compliment that I'm surprised her hand isn't red from the proverbial slap. She said, "I'd have Ignos eating out of the palm of my hand if my voice had that kind of range," followed by, "Yes, a true waste for someone the creators did not deem worthy of their songs." Please, come on. You don't even know who she is. You don't know her story. Why be such a bitch? I 100% deem Rave's inner monologue as completely justified. Her thoughts are actually her armor right now while she's being bullied, because she cannot speak out against this woman like she normally would have. She is playing the demure, the quiet, shy Kimori from Org, the singer, and not Rave who she is as a person, because Rave who she is as a person would definitely have more gumption and self-confidence and stand up for herself, which I myself wish I had just a little more of, but it's fun to enjoy her inner monologue nonetheless. Although she can't stand up to this woman, she does stand up to Tirok. In fact, standing up to him is the entire reason that this mission is set in motion by Rave herself. Though we don't know it yet, Tirok is more than just a bully. He's a straight up asshole. And the reason in which the fear went after him is 100% justifiable. We'll figure that out in a couple of chapters here. Speaking of this asshole, we get to see just how greasy of an individual this man is when Rave exits the bathroom. He says, with a voice like that, he tacks on, "Stairs sliding down my body like an oily brush making my skin crawl. I'm sure your mouth's a fucking delight." Whoa. God, gross. I fear that if he were any more of a pig, he might just be snorting at her instead of talking. This man sucks. We aren't the only ones who are disgusted. Rave is right along there with us, and the description Sarah A. Parker uses is an interesting one. In fact, it is another one of her breadcrumbs that we'll be picking up. "An icy ball of rage gathers within my chest, pulsing with its own violent heartbeat, salivating to end it here. Now." The important wording here is icy rage and pulsing with its own violent heartbeat. This is going to be referring to the other as another entity within herself. when she's talking about the secondary heartbeat, and that's the one that's salivating to end it, this is all talking about the other, which gives us hints as to who the other is. So we know Icy Rage, ice like from Netherin, where the moon plume breeding grounds are, where their nesting grounds are, and that it being the coldest place in the whole wide world. And the violent heartbeat being that it's an individual, like it's a monster, it's a dragon who has more anger and violence in its heart than most humans do, than Rave herself does. And so those are both important things. And if you haven't caught up by now, I do believe that, and has been confirmed that the other is Slatra. So I'm just going to get that out there to begin with. Back to the story and how much of a mastermind that Sarah A. Parker is. I know we just already know that Tarek speaks to Igni, but the descriptive language used around him is reminding us so subtly of the fact that you wouldn't notice it unless you're really looking. The example being, I insist, he grinds out, eyes hardening to dark flints that makes something inside of me pause. Flint, aka something that is used to make fire. Sarah A. Parker. Brava. Brava. Not only is she using the description of Tarek to remind us of what he is, but she uses Khan's description yet again to plant breadcrumbs as to who and what he is. We both looked over his shoulder at the large cloaked male who watched me sing all slumber from the back of the room while exuding the stoicism of a stone statue. Beautiful description to let us know, yet again, that Khan has an affinity to Boulder. It's just genius. It is so genius, Sarah A. Parker. I want inside of your mind. Realistically, we could also have a nod to Khan's affinity with Ignos here as well, though it might be a bit of a stretch. The quote that I'm pulling says, the hall suddenly feels like a vein swelling with too much hot pumping blood, like an incinerating storm just crammed between the close-pressed walls and sponged all the oxygen, leaving little for me to breathe. And I say this could be a nod towards Khan's proficiency with Ignos because the paragraph mentions not only the heat of the room now that Khan entered the room, but also the fact that all of the oxygen has disappeared. And we know from the prologue that, and I quote, Ignos was a glutton for Claude. The god of fire feasted on her, consumed her, loved her so much he could not breathe without her. His searing song was one of ferocious hunger and impassioned greed, but Claude could not be tamed by his rabid affections, even as he blazed jungles to give her smoke to dance within. So it makes sense to me that if the room was comfortable before Khan showed up, and then as he shows up, the room gets to be too warm and feels as though there's no more oxygen or air, aka Claude has disappeared, it's a poetic way of letting us know that he also has an affinity with Ignos. Now, I would like to think that Khan noticed Tarek enter a space where he knew that he could corner a woman and came in to stop him, because that's just the kind of man he is. However, I don't know if he's truly doing this for Rave as a woman or for Rave because of the woman he used to know and thinks that she may be. A large part of me wants to say that Khan is the type of man to look after women when in the presence of a scumbag like Tarek, but the larger part of me thinks that he was only there for the woman he once knew and was reminded of again tonight. And it's as we follow Rave back out of this interaction that I realize just how terrible of a spy that I would be. Let's ignore the fact that I can't lie to save my life, but if I had to remember to go by a completely different name, I would be done for. Half a day. I would maybe make it half a day. Not even. I don't think I could even make it an hour. I would not survive. When I was a child and went to camp, I was terrible at remembering to go by my camp name. I could not do that as an adult. Absolutely not. When my memory's worse, no chance. So as much as I'd like to think that I would survive as Rave and many other FMCs in my fantasy books, the odds are not in my favor. Though I do enjoy the fact that Rave herself has a moment where she also forgets that she's going by a separate name. So I guess what I'm saying is there's a chance. Now, in order to escape the attention of her fellow musician, Levy, who is determined to walk her home, Reyes shows Levy her Fjord-Ath token. This token is a glass orb with the depiction of a mythical elding bird hatching from the bulb of flame within it. It's this glass orb that actually gives me pause when I recently did a reread and made me wonder if the Fjord-Ath and its leader, the elding bird, could actually possibly be the Scavenger King. I have another video on this a while back, It's actually one of my most recent videos. So if you want to jump on this crazy train with me and head into Crazy Town, we're welcome to go and watch those videos and come back, because for me, there are way too many connections between the Elding Bird and the Scavenger King for me to be convinced otherwise. There are two things that make this interaction hit differently on a reread. One being this quote: "She fills her lungs but fails to forge the breath into words, releasing a shuddered exhale, stare caught on her hands now clasping the swell of her belly. A vision that does something strange to my heart, makes me feel like it's going to burst, and not in a nice way." That line in particular cuts so deep on a reread. It is brutal. I can't even think about it too long because I'm going to start tearing up. But having it happen right after her body subconsciously wants to hang around Con longer. Oh, God. Sarah, you devious woman, you. This is rude and great all at the same time. You know how to cut where it hurts. And the more I think about the entire situation that is Elowen / Rave and Con and the pregnancy, the angrier that I am that she didn't actually get to enjoy that time with Con together. They didn't get to celebrate their love or the blessing that they were bestowed. And Con doesn't even know that he has a daughter. She didn't get to enjoy her pregnancy the way that she should have. And she had to make Tirok believe that it was his child. It's just... I want them to get a redo. I want them to get a redo so badly. It makes me want to know, Sarah A. Parker, who hurt you? I guess it's because of the swollen belly, though, that I cannot get upset with Levy. She's just looking out for herself and her family, which is why I'm not mad at her, even though I know what she does by handing Rave and that contact information, which is the second reason that this scene hits differently on a reread. I'll say it's nice to know that Levy is a bit sad to turn her in, but not sad enough not to do it. I mean, think about it. When we find out in a couple of chapters that anyone who gives up information about the fear will receive 10 buckets of bloodstone and a complimentary accommodation on the north side of the wall for 3 phases, 3 years, she's pregnant and due any time now, and she's gonna get 10 buckets worth of bloodstone as well as 3 years of accommodated housing on the north side of the wall. I can't be mad at Levy for that. I mean, everyone wants best for their children and for their growing life. So the amount of money and these accommodations will set Levy and her family up for years. Her child won't have to grow up in the gore, fighting to carve its way into the harsh, grimy world from the moment it was born like the rest of the Null population. And knowing this and knowing Rave, I almost want to say that she wouldn't be mad either. The quote that I'm going to say next says, "Take care," I whisper, about to spin again when she grabs my arm, eyes glazed with an unshut emotion. She offers me a fold of parchment. "What's that?" My details, in case you want to perform together again." She whisper rasps, working her lips into a smile that looks more sad than happy. Like perhaps she knows I won't contact her, that we'll never see each other again. It's this piece of parchment that she hands to Rave with her information on it that will eventually lead Rec to Rave's home and to Essie. And that is where Chapter 2 wraps up, with Rave leaving the pub with a piece of parchment that, unbeknownst to her, will start a snowball of events that will bring her back to some of the darkest and some of the best moments of her past life. Rave leaves us at the end of the chapter with a gentle reminder that caring is not, in fact, sharing. Caring simply means more heartache. It means that there are areas in your life in which others can target to get to you, which, in knowing what we do about her past, not only as Rave, but also as Elowen, is completely understandable. She carries so much grief and so much heartache. Much of it she doesn't even know about because she's got it buried so deep within that lake of hers that the memories don't feel like they're hers to begin with. They feel like they belong to someone else entirely, though they are just as painful for her to live through. It'll be very interesting to see just how Rave decides to deal with everything that she has buried beneath that icy lake, as I'm sure that it won't stay frozen and buried for the entire series. Eventually, she's going to have to deal with all of her trauma, and I wonder if when she does, the extra baggage she has unknowingly been carrying around her will also reinstate herself. What she carries from her past life is very heavy indeed. Her family's death, being torn away from her love, being made to trick another, and never being able to meet her daughter those are all such heavy burdens. But it's also filled with great light. I mean, the time that she got to spend with Khan, the love story that is between the two of them, the love between her and Slatra, and her kinship with Vea. It's a found family, and a bond that has grown in itself. And so it's just a good way to remind that everything has its ups and downs. Though you might be down now and be going through the dirts and the drags, there are lighter days that are coming. The more I think about it, the more certain I am that my heart is going to be absolutely demolished in the upcoming books. But realistically, that's what I live for. It's the only reason that this book is my favorite. Not the only reason, let me be honest, but it's one of the reasons that this book is my favorite. Sarah A. Parker tore out my heart, sent it through the paper shredder, and then pieced it back together like it was a CSI shredded document puzzle. Only 195 days to go before I will be a puddle on the floor waiting to be put back together again. So that is the entirety of my Chapter 2 deep dive. Thank you for coming along this week. And next week, we'll hit up Chapter 3. Bye!